Hey, what's up everyone? Craig here with another video where we're going to talk about overwintering tropical and exotic style plants. And in this video we're going to focus on banana plants. Whether it's hardier banana plants like this Musa Basjoo behind me or Musa sikkimensis, or some of the more tender banana plants that we grow in our gardens like this Ensete ventricosum. There are so many different ways that you can overwinter banana plants. Some, for me, have been much more successful than others, and I'm also going to tell you some of the things to avoid that can potentially damage your plants in the winter months. So first thing to know is that some of the bananas that we can grow here in the UK are actually a lot hardier than you might think. If you grow one of the green-leaved bananas, that's Musa Basjoo, it's commonly called the root-hardy Japanese banana. And that's because even if the whole stem and the leaves are frosted and they turn to slime in winter, chances are in spring new pups will shoot from that root ball at the base of the plant. Root hardy basically means plants with thick fleshy roots that will reshoot in spring as long as the roots aren't frozen for a long period. And Musa Basjoo is one of the hardiest bananas that we can grow in this country, so I'd recommend growing that one if you're worried about overwintering exotic plants in your tropical style garden. Now there is another species of banana, Musa sikkimensis, which is in the same genus as Musa Basjoo. Musa sikkimensis is almost as hardy as Musa Basjoo. It's slightly less tolerant of cold, but it is definitely worth trying. Now I don't actually grow that plant in my garden yet. I'd love to add one, and you can actually get Musa sikkimensis that have red stripes on the leaves, and they are really nice plants, and they're often sold under names like Bengal tiger or red tiger, and they can be really variable. So like I say, if you're looking for hardier banana plants to try in your garden, try the green-leaved Musa Basjoo or Musa sikkimensis. If you are worried about overwintering these bananas, these would be my tips. I'll continue it when this noisy aeroplane, helicopter, it's the Coast Guard, when the helicopter has passed. So overwintering these hardier bananas is all about maintaining height. You want to preserve that stem so that the following year the leaves are being put out at 4 or 5 foot and giving you a huge head start at the start of the season. So the ways you can preserve the height in your hardier banana plants is just to wrap that stem with a breathable fabric or breathable membrane, and something like horticultural fleece is going to be the perfect thing. So often I see people wrapping their banana plants in bubble wrap because people use bubble wrap to protect things like their greenhouse, like I've done here. Now that's fine for very short periods. So if your banana is out and enjoying the fresh air and there's a cold night forecast and you're going to wrap it in bubble wrap for one night, it will probably be fine and it will protect it from the cold. But if you leave that bubble wrap on for a long time period, it doesn't let the plant breathe. Condensation will build up inside of that bubble wrap and it will cause your plant to rot. And you're just going to do the opposite of what you're aiming for. That stem will rot away and you will lose all of that height, and your banana is probably going to have to reshoot from the base again in spring. If you get a water glass and sit it on your lawn and leave it there for a while, you'll see the glass steam up. Grass and all plants do exactly the same thing. They all release water into the atmosphere. And you see how much water will build up inside that glass sat on your lawn, and it will give you an idea of how much water is going to be trapped around your tender plants when you wrap them in bubble wrap. So stick with breathable materials like horticultural fleece. And the reason we need breathable materials for plants like bananas especially is because even though I've been calling it the stem, it's actually a pseudo stem. Bananas don't have a stem, they're a giant herb, which means they stay herbaceous, and herbaceous material, that's the fresh green water retentive material, is more likely to rot. So if we have a look at this stem here, all this is lots of old leaves that have been pushing up through the stem. They've condensed together and formed this great big herbaceous trunk. And because it's herbaceous, it's much more susceptible to cold weather, because in my previous video where I talked about overwintering colocasias, I talked about how it's water freezing in tender plants that causes cells to rupture when that frozen water expands. So if this isn't a true stem, if it is just made up of lots of herbaceous material, it's going to be incredibly susceptible to damage by the same cause, by water freezing. So that's why, even on hardy bananas, if you want to keep the height, preserve the stem and wrap it in a breathable material like horticultural fleece. And an advisable extra precaution to take would just be to mulch around the base of your plants, because even though they're root hardy, an extra layer of something just to insulate the roots from any penetrating cold is going to be really, really helpful. So mulch them with leaf mold, with compost, with bark. Anything you've got on hand is just going to act as like a blanket over the top of those roots that are in the soil. And then if the roots are protected, like I said, with many of the hardy banana genus and species, they will still shoot from the base even if you lose all of the growth that you've got above ground, which is perfect. We like plants that have their own backup plan. Now, unfortunately, not all banana plants are as hardy here in the UK. But they are still beautiful exotic foliage plants that we love to grow. And Ensete ventricosum, or Ensete ventricosum morellii, which is the red leaf version, are really, really popular plants. And I have done a thorough overwintering video for this plant, which I will link in the description below, and I'll put a link somewhere on screen. And that tells you how to overwinter Ensete bananas in dry storage. And that just means lifting them out from the ground or out from their pot, rinsing off all of the soil, cutting off all of the foliage, which is hard, I know, because we've been growing it all summer long, and then storing them upside down somewhere frost-free, like your shed or your attic, or even a greenhouse, and letting them dry out all winter, then planting them up in spring and slowly watering them, and they will come back into life. I won't run all the way through that process because you can watch my previous video. Now, I've had some success with that method, but it's no longer my favourite method. Because I'm lucky now and I've got a greenhouse, I can just grow my plants in pots, and I know this is a young plant, but it's much easier for me to demo with this than some enormous banana plant. By growing it in a pot, I can just move my plant into a frost-free spot that doesn't drop below 7 or 5 degrees Celsius, which I think is about 41 degrees Fahrenheit. I can cut off any excess leaves, and on this plant I'd probably cut off all but the one last leaf that's come up, and that just removes any extra material that might be susceptible to rot. And like I say, it all holds extra water, so by cutting off those leaves you're kind of reducing the risk of rot and damage. And then just leave it in its pot and leave it very, very, very dry all winter. I won't water my banana plants that I'm overwintering probably more than every 6, maybe even 8 weeks. So they'll only be watered 2 or 3 times through the whole winter period. And that's only a minimal water just to keep them ticking over. Because as soon as the daylight hours start to increase and the weather starts to warm in spring, their natural mechanisms will kick in, and you'll see them pushing up new leaves from the center of the plant, and you'll know it's time then to pop them on and start watering and feeding again. And bananas, being tropical plants, will grow like mad. So this way is good because you're waiting for the plant to tell you when it's ready, because it will start growing even with minimal watering. I think that's the best way, personally, to overwinter the tender banana plants, and this is the method I'm going to be doing myself. Now, I know that was a bit of a waffly video, but hopefully it's given anyone who hasn't overwintered their own hardy or tender exotic banana plants yet, it's given you some guidance on what to do and what to avoid. The key things to remember is, if you grow the hardier plants, it's just about mulching around the roots and preserving the height. If you're growing tender plants, it's about keeping them drier in those cold winter months and then keeping them above 5 to 7 degrees. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and go check out my other videos. I've got loads of tips, tours and vlogs of my gardening journey. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the plant and seed shop, and I will see you all in the next video. Ciao.